Ses, ses. Kıymetli misafirlerimiz, Türkiye Büyük
Distinguished guests, now the Speaker of Turkish Grand National Assembly has just graced our hall. Welcome, Mr. Numan Kurtulmuş.
basın mensuplarımıza teşekkür ediyorum.
We would like to thank the members of the press. Distinguished Speaker of Turkish Grand National Assembly, dear protocol members, esteemed representatives of NGOs and political parties, dear guests coming from home and abroad, esteemed representatives of the press, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to salute you all wholeheartedly, and we will be discussing the challenges and opportunities faced by contemporary Islamic community. And in order to encourage collaborations among our communities, we will be discussing knowledge, will, and order. And I would like to welcome each and every one of you to Istanbul Forum organized for these 3 days. Now we will start our program with the recitement of Quran, and I would like to invite the Imam of Ayasofya Mosque, Mr. Bünyamin Topçuoğlu, to the floor for the recitement of Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا وكنتم على شفا حفرة من النار فأنقذكم منها كذلك يبين الله لكم آياته لعلكم تهتدون ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وأولئك هم المفلحون ولا تكونوا كالذين تفرقوا واختلفوا من بعد ما جاءهم البينات وأولئك لهم عذاب عظيم يوم تبيض وجوه وتسود وجوه فأما الذين اسودت وجوههم أكفرتم بعد إيمانكم فذوقوا العذاب بما كنتم تكفرون وأما الذين ابيضت وجوههم ففي رحمة الله تلك آيات الله نتلوها عليك بالحق وما الله يريد ظلما للعالمين. ولله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وإلى الله ترجع الأمور. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اركعوا واسجدوا واعبدوا ربكم وافعلوا الخير لعلكم تفلحون وجاهدوا في الله حق جهاده وجاهدوا في الله حق جهاده هو اجتباكم وما جعل عليكم في الدين من حرج ملة أبيكم إبراهيم. سماكم المسلمين من قبل وفي هذا ليكون الرسول شهيدا عليكم وتكونوا شهداء على الناس فأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة واعتصموا بالله فأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة واعتصموا بالله هو مولاكم فنعم المولى ونعم النصير. واعتصموا بالله فنعم المولى ونعم النصير صدق الله العظيم الفاتحة.
Ayasofya-i Kebir Camii Şerifi İmam Hatibi,
We would like to thank Mr. Benjamin Topçuoğlu, Imam of Ayasofya Mosque, for his beautiful recitement. Now, distinguished Speaker of Turkish Grand National Assembly, dear guests, while starting our program, I would like to invite all of you a moment of silence for our martyrs who has fallen, and after that we will have our national anthem. Thank you.
biz kimiz?
Who are we? Are we just a crowd? Or are we the history itself? Now, maybe are we the headache of the global powers, or are we the burden on the shoulders of this geography? So are we a society or community who doesn't know its value, or are we the other, just a crowd in the eyes of the others? So I can say no, no, thousands of times, no. We are actually the people of and the reality of this geography, reality of this lands, reality of this civilization. So who are we? We need to refresh our memories and our place in the hearts. Now the Muslim communities are also asking themselves, who are we? So we are talking about a conscious solidarity. In order to understand and realize the current situation, we need to ask ourselves, with this seeking, with this understanding, and under the theme of knowledge, will, and understanding, with the pioneers of Islamic world, we are all together in this forum. And distinguished guests, dear participants, now I would like to give the floor to one of our distinguished speakers, who is actually the pioneer of this forum, lawyer Rıza Yorulmaz, the General President of Cihan Numa Foundation. I would like to invite you, Mr. Rıza Bey, to the floor to extend your speech. It is 13th of December 2024. Our fire at our hearts is still going on. It is 433rd days in Gaza. So I would like to extend my condolences to all of our martyrs. Distinguished Speaker of Turkish Grand National Assembly, dear protocol members, esteemed representatives of NGOs, and dear guests coming from abroad, dear guests from our institutions, ladies, gentlemen, distinguished youth. For a fair, just, and merciful world, we organized this forum for the contribution of a just world, and I would like to extend my thanks to each and every one of you for your presence in our forum. Distinguished President, now we have the crisis of civilization for the last 200 years. We are under the hegemony. They are trying to make us dependent to them, and that it is an order of colonialism, and they cheat us, and they are trying to take all of us and direct all of us to this chaos. And for long years, with the slavery, with the colonialism, and with all of this conflict, we still remember all of this. Only in 20th century, only 200 million people lost their lives due to the wars triggered by the Western powers. 10% of the world's population, with about 200 million of people now live under the poverty line. So the West, we see that block this. Nobody can prevent this. Now we see that the world is smaller than two, and we all know that with violence you cannot achieve anything. If it is the darkest point of the night, so you're close, so we will be able to find a way to get out of this cruelty, this violence of the West. The West is not only trying to have these problems, but they're also disrupting the family life, the social order, and they are destroying their own humanity. But we need to reach our welfare, our peace, and dignity. And in order to do that, as Gaudi said, the French philosopher said that if you like your future, you should know that the Western civilization has gone bankruptcy. So if you continue to follow this Western civilization, then it is like committing a suicide. But of course, we can find solutions with Islamic philosophy, with our civilizations. We established different civilizations, and we set an example for the dignity. And even Israelis came to these territories, these lands, to seek refugees. These lands are the guardians of peace and security and safety. So if you have love your hearts, as you remember the words of Sezai Karakoç, which are uttered for these lands, for these geographies, And now, unfortunately, with the Ummah of Islam, we will achieve again. I'm not just talking about this for the cruelty or for these issues, but you see that in Syria, now a new era full of hope has just started with the collapse of Assad. And we see that they will try to plan these areas, these geographies, according to their own wills, but we will not let them do so. We have this burden on our shoulders and we will follow that. Our responsibilities are not limited to Syria, but we will have the responsibility in all Middle East, in all geographies, and we will continue our path of civilization, and we will have a new world ideal and a livable Turkey. And I sincerely believe that we will be able to reach our two goals, and we will be able to succeed, and we were able to realize our goals even though the others try to block us. But we have this new vision, this new target, and with the goal of our president, Mr. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, he announced that the century of Turkey is important for us. So it is a milestone for us. We will continue our path. We will continue to look for the future, for the century of Turkey. And we need to have wahda. We need to have the unity among the Muslim communities. And in order to achieve these, we need to love each other. As it is ordered in Hadith, you should not ignore ourselves. You should not ignore the other Muslim people. You should keep an eye on each other. You should have trade among yourselves so that you will be able to establish welfare, and you will be able to get richer altogether, and you will be able to contribute a fairer world and a world where you can live in love. If you love the people, the ummah, your Muslim brothers, in the name of Allah, then you will succeed. If you love your brothers in the name of Allah, then it means that you love Allah Almighty. So we will love, and we love all the Muslim people in the name of Allah. And we do this in our foundation, and we feed all of our activities and procedures in the name of Allah. Distinguished President, dear guests, as Cihan Numa Foundation, we set up our principles in the light of a fair world, and we will follow our path. We will continue to fight, and with our brothers and sisters. We will not surrender. We will continue with our energy, with our civilization, and we have all the basis for the achievements. And we will be able to determine our future all together in Sarajevo, in Skopje, in Baghdad, in Beirut, in Yemen, in Cairo, in Al-Quds, in Istanbul. We see the names of these holy cities in the verses of different poets, in our libraries, in our madrasa, in our schools, in our universities. And with this historical accumulation, we will continue to flourish as the guardians of the civilizations. And with this accumulation of knowledge, we have the huge responsibility on our shoulders. Even though the era changes, our responsibility has not changed. We will continue to address the solutions and come up with different outcomes for our world and for humanity with our consciousness. And Cihan Numa Foundation will continue to address these problems, these challenges, because we see the sorrow of our people, and we will continue to share this sadness, and we will continue to heal the wounds of these people, because every word is like a bullet. So our words are important, and our words are important for our future, and we said it for our nerves, and we said that this is important for our reality. Without yelling, without screaming, we will continue to say our words, and for the benefit of our people, for the benefit of Ummah. And we have Cihan Numa magazine. It's in the 17th edition right now, and in every 6 months we also have different magazine, different journal about international relations, and we have the 5th edition right now. We continue to follow our academic and intellectual accumulation, and we will continue to do our symposiums, our conferences, and we are sharing all of these solutions that we come up with the stakeholders. We also organized a workshop on migration in Gaziantep, and we have organized 6 symposiums so far. And we believe that we also have different commemoration programs, and we actually shorten the distance. We bring the hearts together in these programs, and we try to share the accumulation of Cihan Numa Foundation with Turkey's accumulation of different knowledge and the different civilizations. So, with this meaningful program, Istanbul Forum program, we have all gathered here today in Istanbul, and we are looking for solutions, and we are looking for meanings in this program, and we will touch upon the challenges of Ummah and Islamic world, and we will continue our solidarity. We will be able to exchange our ideas. So this is the product of our program today. This will be the outcome of our product today, and we are going to establish our roadmap with the solutions that we will find. So actually this program was the program that we dreamed of, and for the last 2 years we have been working for this program day and night. And this is the first edition of our program. Of course, there might be some shortages, or there might be some lackings in our program, but we will try to find better ways to follow up our solutions. And you are all here today, and you share our joy, you share our enthusiasm, and our hall is now full. There are many guests coming from all around the world, and so it is very important for us to have you here. We have hopes, we have ideals, and we have dreams, and we will show that, we will see that the world is bigger than two. And we believe that all the people living in the world should have the dignity and should have the rights, and this is our dream, and this is our responsibility, and we will share this responsibility all together. So I extend my thanks to each and every one of you while ending my words. Dear guests, distinguished speaker, distinguished president, Mr. Şenel Kızılca, the organizer of our program, I would like to thank him. I would like to thank Mr. Ahmet Köroğlu, and I would like to thank our executive board, our Istanbul branch, and all of our heroes for contributing to the actualization of this program. And once again, I would like to thank the Speaker of our Turkish Grand National Assembly, Mr. Numan Kurtulmuş, for his presence. And dear participants, I would like to extend my gratitude to each and every one of you once again for being here. And I hope that our path will be opened. And once again, I hope that this program will be auspicious for all of us. Thank you very much for your patience.
Cihan Numa Derneği
We would like to thank Mr. Rıza Yorulmaz, the General President of Cihan Numa Foundation. Distinguished speaker, dear guests, there are many people coming from different geographies of the world. We also have many pioneers of different geographies. We have Mr. Dr. Mehdi Ibrahim, the former ambassador, and he is coming from Sudan. He will speak in Arabic. Thank you. With your applause, I invite him to the floor.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. بودي أن أحيي كل واحد وواحدة منكم هذا الصباح في هذه الجامعة الفتية، وأنتم تجتمعون من شتى أنحاء العالم الإسلامي نحو هدف جليل يستحق أن ينهض له المسلمون من كل مكان. نحن اليوم نواجه تحديات جليلة. هذه التحديات واحد من أهم أسبابها إسقاط الخلافة الإسلامية التركية العثمانية التي اعتاد الغرب أن يسميها The Ottoman Empire، ينزع عنها صفة الإسلام. منذ سقوط الخلافة تيتم العالم الإسلامي وفقد الغطاء والأمان والحصن الذي كان يحميه، فتصدى الغرب يمزق الجسم الإسلامي عرقيا وقبليا ودينيا وطائفيا، حتى صارت حالنا هذه الحالة التي نشتكي منها اليوم. نحن اليوم في أضعف حالتنا، يعمنا هذا الظلام. ولقد وصف النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام هذه الحال: يوشك أن تداعى عليكم الأمم كما تداعى الأكلة على قصعته. قالوا: أمن قلة نحن يومئذ يا رسول الله؟ قال: كلا، إنكم كسر ولكنكم غثاء كغثاء السيل. نحن اليوم في حال يصدق فيها الكاذب ويكذب فيها الصادق، ويخون فيها الأمين ويؤتمن فيها الخائن. يعمنا هذا الظلام، ولكن بفضل هذه الجهود التي نرى إخواننا هنا في تركيا ماضيا وتركيا حاضر وتركيا مستقبلا، يحاولون أن يسعفوا العالم الإسلامي بأن يجتمعوا في مثل هذا اللقاء، يجددوا الأمل، يبنوا رؤية استراتيجية، يحددوا الأهداف المرحلية، يوزعوا الأدوار، يعملون مجتمعين من أجل أن نحدث هذا التغيير الكبير. إخواني وأخواتي وأبنائي وبناتي، أصدقكم القول أني جئت إليكم في هذه المناسبة وأنا أحمل أملا عظيما بأننا سنخرج من هذه المحنة، سنخرج منها أقوياء، وسنخرج منها صفا واحدا، وسنخرج منها منتصرين. ذلك أن طوفان الأقصى الذي حدث غير كل المعادلات التي ترونها كانت سائدة في هذه المنطقة، زلزل كل الثوابت التي ترونها، فضح العالم الغربي أمام كل شعوب العالم وأمام شعوبه وطلابه وأبنائه وبناته. انكشف الزيف. نحن الآن بين يدي طوفان الأقصى، وترون التغييرات بدأت في سوريا الآن وستمضي إن شاء الله تباعا. ليس ذلك رجما بالغيب، ولكن ذلك من وعد النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام: إن الله ليبعث لهذه الأمة على رأس كل 100 من يجدد لها أمر دينها. لقد انتهت 100 منذ سقوط الخلافة الإسلامية بأحزانها وبانكساراتها وبهزائمها وبإحباطاتها، ولكننا اليوم نستقبل مرحلة جديدة كما وعد الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام. ولكن الوعد القرآني الذي أختم به هذه الكلمات، الوعد القرآني العظيم، وهو ينظر في واقعنا هذا. قد أحكم الغرب هيمنته علينا، وأحكمت إسرائيل هيمنتها على حكوماتنا وعلى جيوشنا، وأصبحت الشعوب مكبلة عاجزة عن أن تمضي نحو مرادها. هذا الواقع القرآن الكريم يبشرنا فيه، ونريد أن نمن على الذين استضعفوا في الأرض ونجعلهم أئمة ونجعلهم الوارثين ونمكن لهم في الأرض ونري فرعون وهامان وجنودهما منهم ما كانوا يحذرون. هذه بشرى أعظم من أن نسكت عليها. هذه بشرى ينبغي أن نشيعها، وهذه بشرى ينبغي أن تشيع فينا جميعا حتى نخرج من وطأة الانكسارات والهزائم ونستقبل هذا الوعد الإلهي العظيم. أقول قولي هذا وسلامي وصلاة الله عليكم.
Doktor Mehdi
The President of the European Assembly of Muslims, Mr. Abdullah Mansur, will take the floor now.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله، الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أيها الجمع الكريم، أنا كنت في المستشفى في باريس بعد حادث سيارة، وصلتني هذه الدعوة الكريمة وبعد هذا المؤتمر سأعود إلى المستشفى إن شاء الله. لماذا قدمت إليكم من المستشفى؟ لو كنت خارج العالم وأعمل خطأ من هنا إلى هنا سوف تكون نقطة في مكة، ولكن لو أخذتم قارة أوروبا في دائرة، وقارة آسيا في دائرة، وقارة إفريقيا في دائرة، سوف تلتقي الدوائر الثلاث في إسطنبول. سوف يلتقي العالم في تركيا. تركيا من الناحية الجغرافية هي وسط العالم، ولذلك الله سبحانه وتعالى عندما نجى نوح نجاه أين؟ نجاه في تركيا. وقامت تركيا بدورها الرائد في حفظ الإسلام والمسلمين لمدة قرون عديدة، 6 قرون، ولكنها تخلفت قليلا. لما وصلتني الدعوة قلت هذه بشرى. نحن في الحركة الإسلامية في أوروبا يجب أن نكون مع تركيا الجسر الذي تعود عبره الحضارة الإسلامية لإنقاذ الإنسانية المريضة. والله أرى في أوروبا كل يوم 350 إلى 400 أوروبي يدخلون في الإسلام. الإنسانية تنتظر الإسلام، الإنسانية تنتظر رجوع هذه الحضارة حتى تسعدها. وقد تكلم سعادة السفير عن أمراض التي ساهم الغرب فيها. نحن عندنا الدواء، نحن عندنا الوسيلة، نحن عندنا التجربة. فإذا وضعت هذه يدها في يد الحركات الإسلامية في العالم فإننا بإذن الله سبحانه وتعالى سوف نسعد الناس جميعا. وقد بدأ هذا من سنوات، ولكن تسارع الأمر بعدما حصل في غزة. غزة سوف تغير الجغرافيا وتغير التاريخ وتغير أنظمة العالم. والذي مستوى الكرامة والحضارة والعدالة هو أنتم في مؤتمر
Thank you very much for your remarks. Distinguished guests, the chairman of the Turkish National Assembly, Dr. Numan Kurtulmuş, will now take the floor to deliver his opening remarks.
Çok değerli dava arkadaşlarım, saygıdeğer hanımefendiler, değerli misafirler, hepinize hoş geldiniz, sefalar getirdiniz diyorum. Bugün burada İstanbul Forum'da bizlere ev sahipliği yapan Cihan Numa Derneği'ne, değerli yöneticilerine ve bu uluslararası forumun
And the organizers of this international forum who have brought us together. I hope that this symposium will be successful and the ideas that we put forward here will help us gain useful ideas about the future of the Muslims of the world. First of all, we are all aware that the world is going through a very challenging time. We are in an era where we witness many things coming to being. And globally speaking, we are at the verge of very important developments. In this framework, we need to have a very good understanding of the future developments and prepare our own plans for that. So I believe that it is not a coincidence that the meeting, this summit, is based on the principles of knowledge, will, and vision, because you need a very deep understanding and a very strong will, a very good vision to make our objectives come true, and we need to have a very good and strong order on which we will implement these plans. I would like to thank the organizers. The world is going towards a very important era. Very recently we have witnessed two important turning points in the history. The first one was the end of the Cold War, which was symbolized by the fall of the Wall of Berlin. The second one was the establishment of a new order in the world with the collapse of the Soviet Union. The 45-year-old war came to an end with the collapse of the Wall of Berlin. And afterwards, we saw a time when the US thought it was instating a new order and ruling the whole world on its own. But it was not an order, it was a lack of order. It was a global lack of order, which was also clearly shown by every development we have witnessed. And this era came to an end 2 years ago, in 2022, when the US suddenly withdrew troops from Afghanistan. And we saw people trying to get on planes, piling on staircases. And at the same time, we saw that the global order, the global system, which was thought to be perfect, was no longer standing on its feet. From now on, a new world will be built. How this new world will shape will be decided by those who have the knowledge, the will, and the plan for a new order. We still don't know how the new world will be shaped, but there is something very clear. From now on, We will not have a bipolar or a monopolar world that is ruled by a country or a territory. To the contrary, we will have a multipolar, a multi-centered new world. And we will all see that, inshallah. And in this process, in all this multipolar system, some countries of the world will become much more important. We are already witnessing that. And one of these countries is, without doubt, Turkey, our country. So before us, we have a very important period, both for the future of our country and for the future of humanity. It's just up to us to take this opportunity. We need to say our words strongly and for the benefit of all humanity. May Allah give us this opportunity. We will be working very hard for this objective. Also, with the transition to this multipolar system, we will also have alternative paradigms and ideas to offer solutions to the problems that we are faced with now. For example, the wars, conflicts, global migration, and poverty, which are actually intertwined problems, cannot be solved with temporary political remedies. These three problems are very important political developments that are crucial for all parts of the world. But just like we need a new global order, we need a renewed perspective, a humanitarian perspective to address these issues. And also, the global warming and the climate change, which are very important problems for all parts of the world, cannot be seen as an outcome of bad practices in one sector, but it's the outcome of an understanding of a world and a civilization. To eliminate these problems, we need to implement alternative actions. And today, one of the most fundamental problems of the humanity is the erosion of values. The shared, universal, humanitarian values that have been developed throughout centuries, like human rights, women's rights, children's rights, sovereignty of nations, equality of people, and other humanitarian principles have been destroyed, and they have lost their value. So in the future, all of these values should be reproduced and rebuilt and re-demonstrated for the benefit of the whole humanity. As the previous speakers mentioned, historically, this responsibility lies with the people of Turkey. It lies with us, it lies with you. In this framework, without further ado, I would like to highlight 5 important issues that are quite relevant for the future problems that we are about to face. We need to see these problems very clearly, because this is not just a problem of a if we try to list the problems of the world on a piece of paper, we see that they are all global problems and they are all relevant for the whole humanity. And the solution of these problems will come through a new era of fight with a new perspective. Let me share these 5 crucial issues with you. The fight we have to give in the world will be between those who respect the humanitarian values and those who disregard them or who just use these values rhetorically. Fight will be seen all over the world, from the US to France, the UK, to the from Islamic countries to Africa. There will be a fight between those who uphold these values and those who ignore these values. So the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a very strong declaration with a very strong wording of the human rights. But does it have any value? Is it actually implemented? And particularly those who talk the most about human rights, those who hide behind this declaration, violate the very essence of this declaration, and we see numerous examples of those violations every day. For example, the atrocities and one of the biggest genocides in the history of mankind, which is perpetrated by the gang of Netanyahu in Gaza, is only possible because of the support given by those who hide themselves behind this Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So from now on, those who sincerely uphold these values and who strengthen these values, and those who hide behind these values. And we will have this fight all over the world. And we need to prepare for this fight with a strong knowledge base. And we need to uphold these values for all beings that have been created for Allah. This is our historical responsibility. In the future, the second area of struggle will be the struggle between justice and atrocity, those who uphold justice, even those who support justice, even when it means the decisions will be against themselves, will be fighting against those who perpetrate or support the perpetrators of atrocities. Just like with the values, we will see this fight in all parts of the world, in all atmospheres, and this struggle will continue in a very strong way. Will be between is one of the most important struggles of all nations, but those of dollars out of drug trafficking use conflicts and political instability in some parts of the world to fuel their money they get from this drug trafficking. And the nations, tribes, communities, and neighboring countries are made into enemies, and they are used as proxies in proxy wars for the other countries. We know that the weapons, which are worth tens of billions of dollars, are manufactured by specific actors who actually benefit from this lack of a system. So regardless of their religion, nation, or political view, those who would like to speak out for the good of the humanity will be struggling to instate a global order. The difference between having a system and the lack of a system is better understood today, because I would like to give an example from Gaza. Despite more than 50,000 people having killed, although the majority of the UN member nations oppose the atrocities of Israel, the current system that we have in the world actually creates a situation where we have a lack of a system, and this is why this atrocity and massacre continues. To stop that, we need to stop this, we voice our opposition, our views, and our solutions, and our idea that the world is bigger than five at every platform, because any global system that is not based on the equality of nations cannot bring permanent peace in the world. So in the next decades to come, one of the most important areas of struggle will be between those who fight to create a fair system and those who benefit from the lack of a system. Some gentlemen are reluctant to have a reform at the UN because they have the veto right, and they can stop any action that will stop injustice in the world, and they are enjoying that right. They are reluctant to do that because when it comes to us, all they talk about is international law and international justice, but they do not do anything to create an internationally fair system. So one of the most fundamental issues and areas of struggle for us will be the fight between those who support a fair system and those who support the lack of a system. And believe me, you will see in the next period, these 4 or 5 issues will be very important to shape the future of the world politics. Another important area of struggle is the fight against inclusion and exclusion. Those who are inclusive without discrimination of identities, ethnic origins, sects, or religious views, or political views, and bring them together who feel differences, communities. So one of the biggest tests that we will have in the Islamic territories is this question of Syria. After 60 years of dictatorship, the Ba'ath regime has come to an end, a regime that excludes all groups of the society except for members of its dynasty. And after 60 years, this regime has been ended with the will of the people of Syria. Now the Syrian opposition has taken over Damascus, and they are building a new order in Damascus. Our hope is that the Syrian people will be brought together in an inclusive way, since they have been excluded from many things so far. So we want to keep them together with an inclusive political perspective and help them fight for a shared future. In this framework, In the future, one of the biggest tests for the world will be the fight between democracy and autocracy. All around the world, those who uphold democracy, who defend democracy, and those who just abuse democracy, or those who support autocracy, will have a big war. I will say this in parentheses. I don't want to name any names, but both in Islamic countries, in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, those who support the dictators, who support autocratic regimes, who support them in all domains, we know who they were. And at times they try to teach everyone about democracy. And we have seen that their closest allies have been the dictators, and they have supported all actions that would keep those dictators in their places. So starting from the Islamic countries, we will be building the future only through our fight in the 5 domains, part holding democracy against autocracy. And we should not forget that that was also an issue that was recommended by Allah. I would like to emphasize that we are all familiar with the political movements in Islamic countries. Some of these political movements completely exclude Islamic values or disregard them, and they undermine the beliefs of their communities. They are detached from their communities. Or some of them have the word Islam in their names, but they do not have anything to do with inclusiveness or equality, and they don't see themselves in the concept of Islam. In the Islamic tradition, the Muslim regions and our culture has been successfully integrated with democracy. I think Turkey is the only country that has achieved this, and it has to continue being a model in this area. Inshallah, these 5 issues will be seen as an important area of work for us in shaping the future of Muslim territories. We need to cover our gaps, and we need to have a better collaboration between Muslim countries to do this. And beyond that, we need to come up with our global proposals. I would like to reiterate this. We have to intensify our efforts to build a new order on the basis of the principles of Islam, and to instate justice, not only in courts, but also in the whole society. And we need to enrich our inclusive ideas without excluding anyone. We need to strengthen our inclusive understanding, and we need to strengthen our democracy. So I hope that in the future, we will have the opportunity to say our words very strongly. And this is not just an opportunity. This is actually a historic responsibility. Everything shows that we need to be optimistic about the things that are happening. From the moment that the events in Gaza started, all people of Turkey stood with the people of Palestine, our people, our nation, our president, and all our institutions have been supporting this cause. and some other countries are not so lucky. Their governments do not speak up against the war in Gaza. And in some countries, speaking against the atrocities in Gaza is forbidden. But despite that, from day one, particularly in Western countries, although they have pro-Israeli governments, although some of them are even more pro-Israeli than the actual Israeli government, tens of thousands of people or even millions of people went to the streets to support the cause of Palestine. I have been saying this for days. Beware, the front of humanity is being built because by its nature, the humankind support justice, they support the oppressed, and all around the world. Regardless of their religion, faith, their ethnic origins, millions of people went out on the streets to defend Palestine and to support the creation of a fair system. If we didn't have this fight, if we didn't have this front of humanity, believe me, the International Court of Justice verdicts would not come out. These verdicts, without doubt, were the outcomes of this determined spirit of solidarity shown by these people. Because we say these verdicts were issued by these judges, but probably they came under a huge pressure from different governments. But despite that, they issued those verdicts, and it was not an easy job. So behind that, we had the determined stance of the front of humanity. Yes, we have a very grim picture in Gaza. More than 50,000 martyrs, a very serious genocide that is unprecedented in history, but there is still, the door is still ajar to make us more optimistic. Now the front of humanity has to show a stronger solidarity and to continue its surge on the basis of these principles all around the world. As I conclude my remarks, with this fight for liberation, we will see the start of a new era. These are the better days of the Israeli government, because even worse days are waiting for the Israeli government. Because the conscience of humanity is not easy to take action, but when it does, it will not stop until it achieves justice. So the conscience of humanity has taken action, and we are seeing the results. And the process that will follow will be more difficult for them. And the process to follow will be more promising for the cause of Palestine. Both politically and culturally, the cause of Palestine will yield new fruits, and hopefully the cause of Palestine will be defended more strongly in the future. And an independent state of Palestine with its capital in Al-Quds, with the borders of the 1967, will be achieved very soon. Now, it's our turn to speak up. As the children of this civilization, we have to demonstrate, we have to speak the word of justice to the world, and hopefully in the future we will be working very hard to build a new world. May Allah help us speak our word. May Allah help us on our way. May Allah help us build strong friendships. May Allah give us a bright future. I would like to greet you respectfully. I entrust you with Allah.
Gazi Meclisimizin Başkanı Sayın Profesör
We would like to thank Mr. Numan Kurtulmuş, the Speaker of our veteran National Assembly. Now I would like to invite Mr. Rıza Yorulmaz, the General President of Cihan Numa Foundation, to present the plaque.
ve kıymetli protokolü hep birlikte
Now, I would like to invite the protocol to have a family photo.
evet, değerli misafirlerimize çok
Dear guests, thank you very much. Professor Dr. Numan Kurtulmuş, the chairman of Turkish Grand National Assembly, will leave the hall due to his commitments. Now we see off our speaker and we will continue with our program.
ara vermeden Cuma vaktinin de geleceğini dikkate alarak devam ediyor durumda olacağız. Direkt doğrudan panel moderatörü
Now, Mr. Ahmet Köroğlu, as the moderator of the panel, and he's also the president of Executive Board of Istanbul Forum. I would like to invite Mr. Ahmet Köroğlu to the floor.
Se.
Ahmet Hocam. Değerli hocam sahneye doğru.
Mr. Ahmet Köroğlu, please come to the floor.
Siz mi, ben çağırayım mı salona oturun diye?
Başı otur ki üçünü birden tahmin edebilesin. Şöyle gel abi.
Şey yapalım.
Sesler açık.
Ask
Ana mantığının
discussions. Science was other it was a process for us panel, and we will be and an Istanbul Forum, and we will be talking about this concept in order to be more explicit. It was discussed, reflections, the position of Istanbul and the conjuncture of Istanbul in new order. So this was discussed, and we will also talk about Istanbul, the voice of Turkey, and about the voice of Turkey about the Islamic issues. We will be talking about and the perspective of academicians, and in the construction of new era, what are the opinions of our academicians and our philosophers. So we will be addressing these issues together with our members of scientific board. Normally we would have 20 minutes for each of our panelists, but due to the Juma prayer, our time is limited, so we will allocate 10 minutes for each of our speakers. Mr. Ibrahim Halil Uçar, I will give the microphone first of all to you so that you will continue your presentation in the area of will and order. Mr. Ahmed, thank you very much. Dear speakers, distinguished guests, I would like to thank Cihan Numa Foundation for their contributions to this panel and to this forum, Istanbul Forum. Well, I will be enunciating the vision and mission of Istanbul Forum, and I will also take into account the last 300 years of Islamic world, and we will question what is going on as the Muslims, the problem or the efforts of existence. So we will be talking about our questions. Where are we now? And what have we achieved so far? What have we done so far? So what can be assessed? In general, humanity and Islamic world is confronting a crisis of order, and this crisis of order is not limited to the political arena, but in the international scale we see the shift of power, we see the rebalancing of power, we see different ideals for, and we don't see the transition. When we talk about the crisis of order, what we observe in earthquakes, at deeper fractions under the earthquake, we address this. With these fractions, there are two important subjects. One of them is in the 18th century, starting from 18th century, the existence, knowledge, nature, and the understanding of humanity, what the natural order we are living in. So we see that the threat against our existence, and again, Europeans started to take the role as the establisher of the balance, not only in politics, but also in economics. After that, we had the crisis of order. And after that, we have the reality of humanity. And under this order crisis, we have deep fractions. And we can say that in our modern world, we we see the annihilation of two things. One of them is the holy order, and the holy order was denied for the establishment of physical world. And in the world, in the universe, the order of universe, our understanding for the order of universe was confronted with a crisis, and political, moral, and society order through the Prophet Muhammad, the call, the order, the message sent by Almighty Allah was ignored, and we have seen the annulment of the funding power of the holy. And as it corresponds to creative characteristics of Allah Almighty, and the role of this command with this annulment of this command, the two activities of establishment were replaced by another perpetrator, which can correspond to human perpetrator, and human was replaced instead of holy order, the order of Allah, the order of Allah through the Prophet. So normally human is trying to act as seizing the unlimited power, but human has limited power, and as a result, as it is enunciated in ayah, this order, due to this replacement, due to this displacement, we see the eruption and dissolution of positions. So this crisis is not solely related to Muslim people. This crisis is related with the disruption of nature, with the disruption of order and abuse of order, not only in political scene but also in environmental and social areas. In the Islamic world, the crisis of order is the continuation of this big crisis. We can ask ourselves whether the will of human throughout the history has the right to determine the position of different areas. So, do we have this role? Do we have this power as humanity to regulate the politics, to regulate the powers? This is wrong. Human being, when we talk about with anthropocentrism understanding, we are talking about a specific kind of humanity, European humanity. Anthropocentrism is converted into Eurocentrism, and at the same time, this is European-centric direction and redesignation of environment, politics, and society. And we also see the abuse due to the misdirection by the Europeans. And as Muslim people, we are not able to see some points. We ignore them. 6 or 7 years ago, during the period of Biden, we had Trump 6 years ago, and after that, Biden 8 years ago, when I was following the news, we learned that Trump was elected. And Ministry of Defense in the United States, the Secretary of Defense announced, and he had this explanation and speech towards Pentagon. You are the people for the benevolence of humanity, and you oath to protect humanity, and you will give freedom to humanity, and you have the courage, and you are the hope of whole humanity. You represent America. You represent the United States. So when I first read the explanation of the Secretary of Defense, you will all remember the ayah kuntum hayra ummetin uhricet nasi te'muruna bil ma'rufi tenhunker. And I also shared this news with Professor Ömer, the Secretary of Defense, said to the US community that you are the most auspicious community on this earth, and you will bring human rights, democracy, and then you will be the hope of the whole humanity. So this is the essence of the speech. And we see the American way of life, European way of life, and the way they think. They are actually showing themselves as an offer to the humanity, and they think that this offer is very logical, not solely depending on the power, but with the knowledge they create, with all of the wisdom and will, they create it, and they are also trying to create the order accordingly. And today, Muslims actually have a crisis about their offer to the humanity. So, throughout the history, there are big events. So, when these big events happen, they transform the world, and you cannot ignore them. As our Prophet said, the offer to the humanity was an event, was an incident, and after that the outlook of the humanity changed, and the rest of humanity would take it as an example, and this was the order. But starting from 18th, 16th century, as it was also so stated by the Secretary of Defense of US, there is a new form of order, and we see the emergence of orders, and it is also a challenge to our existing order, because two orders will not simultaneously be present in the world. So what would be done? What should be done against this challenge? And in 19th century, we see that the collapse and the Ummah, the Muslim people, started to reshape and understand this offer, and with these challenges, 19th century was the era of suspicion and crisis of suspicion for Islamic world, and all these scholars, philosophers, elites of Islamic world throughout history, for the first time, they expressed their suspicions. So, should we stick to our previous goals, or should, with these challenges, should we look at our offer as we are defeated politically, militarily. So what is behind all of this? Islamic values, Islamic way of life. So if this is the reason, then we will put it aside and we will stick to the new order. If we could stick to this order and if we could respond to this positively by abandoning Muslims' own offer and they are being engaged with the new offer, now they imitate things. The Muslim world of these people started to imitate the West's offer, the offer of the Western world, and they abandoned their own offers as Islamic world. And after this, we see the emergence of conservatism. And this conservatism, after this challenging world, we thought that we should get rid of our own offer. If this is the claim, then if we abandon our offer, you will preserve our traditions, our culture. So a new approach emerged, and with this, our offer was frozen in the history. And these were the two ways. And after that, after imitation and after conservatism as the third way, we looked at the scientific frameworks and practices. They thought that we will be able to adapt these scientific improvements by sticking to Muslim values. And with this universe and with the strength out of this, the Islamic civilization is not a block, and we should have reclamation of Islamic values, but again, for the reclamation. So what will be the criteria? How can we reform it? With this understanding, we couldn't answer the questions, and the Western values were taken to the central point, and apologetic understanding of Islam was introduced. And with this introduction, we see that the claim and the offer, unfortunately, we couldn't have any activity to establish this order. The attitude that we should replace, and as we could negotiate throughout this forum, we should see the advantages of and disadvantages of three different methods, and we will be talking about reality, because if we talk about the Muslims once again will remember their own offer and they will understand it, and in their own systems they will allege it, and then in the practical means they will realize it, and with this method, with this new order, they will agree it. And we think that acquittal is important for the Muslim people, and they will have the thinking, and they will be the witness of a new ideal, and they will once again be subjects in the world history, not objects. And in this direction, without further details, we have the crisis of information in the 19th century, and this has not been completed yet, and we have imitation methods of the Western understanding, and we need a new understanding and novel understanding with self-confidence, and we are going to need a new path, and we need to reopen this book. If we could reopen this book, and if we could open our horizons, then we will be able to reach reality. And for the will and order, for our order, we should enrich our current situation with all the wisdom and with the accumulation of our experiences with the order, and we can witness the humanity, and we will be the owners of this order, and we will have the wealth. Otherwise, we will see the decays in this society, and if we see these decays, then we will not be able to reach our hopes and our dreams. So it is very important for us to try the new order, so that we will have a fairer world. And once again, we need to reopen the offer in the 19th century. We need to reopen this, we need to renegotiate this, and we need to reach deep wisdom. And we will not see this as a luxury, we should see this as a priority. And I would like to thank you for your patience.
Evet, İbrahim Hocam teşekkür ediyoruz.
Much, Professor Ibrahim. We are racing against time. And of course, we will be discussing our notes, but maybe we will be discussing them during the forum. Without further delay, I would like to give the floor to Professor Ömer Türker. The title of his speech is Principles and Procedures. Professor Ibrahim described the overall problems we had and the potential solutions. He suggested the method of arbitration, and Professor Ömer Türker will be talking about the principles and procedures, and he will be talking about what we can do about these problems. And you have 15 minutes, Professor. Thank you very much. Distinguished professors and members of the audience, welcome. Inshallah, this forum will be auspicious. It has very detailed session titles, and I would like to offer a short explanation about the principles. And the prayer time is coming, so I have to hurry. The principles refer to the overall rules. The word principle is used for all areas that create the base of research in sciences, in society, in physics, mathematics. We have overall rules, and all of the information is based on those principles or rules aligned with those principles. And procedure. Procedure has two meanings. The first one is from these rules or principles, and knowledge is produced. Procedure is the way we produce that knowledge. So the procedure is the method. When we're talking about history of speech, we talk about these procedures like Usul-i Hadith, Burhan method, or other methods. The procedure has a second meaning. In Turkish, it is rather about the way of implementation of the knowledge that is gained from the principles. So the procedure is also about execution of knowledge. So any knowledge that is produced in mathematics, in ethics, in fiqh or hadith, any information that is produced, the execution of any knowledge in this area is known as the procedure. So broadly speaking, institutional, it refers to in governance, it refers to the procedure of institutionalization. For example, the state has the duty to ensure security of citizens, so the legal mechanisms that create that security is the procedure. The relationship between the principle and procedure is not a one-way relationship, as we can go from principles to procedures. So, or we can go vice versa. The procedure also tells us how to deal with the essence or the topic that we are trying to deal with. So this is a bidirectional relationship. Why do I say this? There are two important crises in the Islamic world. The first one is the crisis of knowledge, and it emerged as a result of the development of modern knowledge. And the second problem is the problem of power, the crisis of power, which led to a crisis of will. So the crisis of knowledge led to a crisis of sovereignty and is a crisis of ruling, and it led to a crisis of knowledge. And starting from early 19th century to present, the intellectuals and scholars of the Muslim world faced with these problems only in a selected number of areas. If you pay attention, they try to understand crisis with reference to principles, but they focused on the procedures, the way of execution, or manhaj. That's why in the Islamic world, to reproduce knowledge, they tried to transfer methods from the West. And then the problems in interpretation of the Quran emerged. And the governments made strict decisions in implementation. They reformed the educational and political institutions, the state structure. They reformed the security mechanisms. So we saw a very broad area of modernization in the Islamic world. And we cannot say there is a clarity about the domains where the crisis is involved. This system, we assume that this crisis of knowledge has encompassed all areas. It's like, sometimes we tend to think that the modern science emerged as a result of secular worldview, but the modern science is not a success of secularism. The modern science, although it supported the domination of a secular perspective, there is a difference between the secular life and the religious life. And the science developed despite the presence of a church. And of course, some of the people, the figures who led scientific research were actually members of the clergymen. For example, Darwin was a priest. Understanding this helps us understand which principles are in crisis and which principles are affected by a crisis. So, any body of knowledge in the modern world it's only a hypothesis that the whole body of the knowledge in the modern world is in a crisis due to modern science, but due to metaphysical perspectives. But we cannot say that there is a crisis of our physical assumptions. The second thing is that in some domains of knowledge, the principles are in crisis. Yes, the modern physics was established with a clear rupture from the classical understanding of physics. The same happened with the mathematics, particularly in physics and mathematics. The principles of the classical world were undermined, or the principal parts became complementary parts. The assumption that the principles of the Islamic world is in crisis should be reviewed. The involvement of relativity in this regard should be taken into consideration, because the assumption that the whole modern knowledge is in crisis does not seem to be true. Yes, we adopted the modern mathematics and we did not have any problems in producing knowledge in that area, but our crisis is in the second context. The second biggest crisis in physics and mathematics is that the principles building social life and the procedures were in crisis, actually, in the implementation and methods of these principles. In the West, not only in mathematics and physics, but also in history, sociology, anthropology, history of religions, theology, and in many other areas, methods of knowledge producing were not proven wrong by the modern ways of producing knowledge, but it only narrowed down its scope. In pre-Islam period, hearsay was not disciplined, but the Muslims disciplined it. But in the Western civilization, the research on hearsay demonstrated that some things were missing and discovered new aspects of knowledge. In classical period, Muslims built linguistic sciences. They conducted linguistic research, but the modern linguistic sciences did not prove those studies wrong, but only demonstrated the gaps in them. So it also demonstrated that some aspects of linguistic sciences were disregarded by Muslim researchers. And in understanding sociology, in understanding the political science, the same thing happened. So all of the crises in procedures should not be considered as a crisis of principles. Most of these crises are related to procedures. The actual crisis about the social being are related to the principles that we can talk about, that we can think that we can address in the context of classical Islam. I would like to wrap up. What I mean is, the modern era, partially in principles, but mostly in procedures, we have a crisis. We have a crisis in our way of understanding and interpreting these principles. This crisis of method, with both meanings, can be resolved without leading to a major crisis. But we should start by facing the crisis related to principles. So we need to accept the crisis that we have in metaphysics. We need to profoundly understand that the problems we have in mathematics and physics will not undermine our gains in knowledge, and we need to transform into a will and readdress our efforts to build social life. In this meaning, in the contact of the Muslim world with the classical era and as the Muslim world has a better ability to understand the classical knowledge, it can overcome this crisis. So we have come a very long way in understanding the causes of this crisis, and on the basis of our principles, we can take into consideration the modern sciences when addressing these issues. I hope that these efforts will help us walk this journey with more confident steps and with more accurate decisions. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Ömer. We have many notes. We need to move fast because of time limit, but hopefully we will be talking about these issues in a broader framework over the next 3 days. And without further ado, I would like to pass the floor to Dr. Ahmet Ayhan Çiltil. You have 10 minutes. Then I will not use my notes. Hello, dear colleagues. I never get an answer when I say hello. Why? We say Muslims should greet each other, but we don't say hello to each other. Why? Selamun alaikum. Alaikum salam. Well, it's basically the same thing. It's a way of greeting. So, welcome. I would like to thank the organizers for this event. Well, actually, I prepared a PowerPoint but I decided not to use them because I have limited time. Professor Ibrahim described the problem in the historical context very well. He established the relationship of this issue with the concept of knowledge and will. And Professor Ömer said we still have the same principles, we just need to revisit them. So I will be talking about the current situation. Actually, we have a crisis in the Islamic world. It is the crisis of being an actor. We have to be an auspicious ummah for the humanity, but we have our own problems, and humanity has its own problems, as Professor Numan mentioned. We need to be confident about ourselves and address these problems. But actually, we do not have that confidence. And sometimes we are not concerned about these problems. I think this summit also aims to do that. It aims to encourage people to think about these problems and offer solutions. I will be talking about the academic aspect of the problem. Did we always have this kind of schizoid type of problem in academia? No. In the classical era, we could address issues in a holistic way in the academia. And we had made significant progress in sciences, and particularly the classical metaphysics helped us bring together the positive sciences, the natural sciences, and social sciences. So you read Sina, Avicenna, and in the same book, he can talk about the medicine and physics, as well as metaphysical concepts like the angels. As Professor Omar mentioned, a critique of the metaphysics or elimination of metaphysics from philosophical discourse is not reasonable. The idea that we need to move from a metaphysical way of understanding to a more materialistic way of understanding resulted in undermining the metaphysics, and we had this major problem. And later, this led to a divorce between knowledge and metaphysics, and any knowledge could be expressed in specific limits, as Kant mentioned about the universe or God or history. We cannot get any scientific knowledge. That idea became more eminent, and we had to move ahead according to that. However, people cannot help but ask these questions to themselves. Why did I come from? Where am I going to? What does it mean to be a human? I wish I had more time to explain this. In time, these questions were addressed in a more academic context, but not in a metaphysical context in the academia. The mainstream project, it started creating the background of the mainstream studies in academia. For example, can we produce language in a non-human atmosphere? For example, this is the question that we ask in the context of AI today. Can the human's mental activity be reduced to a biological activity? Can we understand the beginning and the end of the universe only by looking at the rules of physics? So it's not just limited to natural sciences. Can we create a political order that will stop exclusion of communities? Now we have the AI projects, which involves multiple disciplines. But on the other side of the coin, this dialectical discussion has another meaning. Scientists try to offer solutions in areas that were previously addressed by metaphysics, but since they have some ideological concerns, any academic concerns or programs have an ideological core, and we are not very comfortable about them. I will wrap up with this if I manage to explain this. What I mean is, developing AI as a tool is not a problem. We can also do that. But if you're talking about singularity, so if you're saying that mankind will make a final discovery and anything else will be discovered by AI. So we are trying to create something superior than people, then it's about ideology. Yes, you start discussing whether humans are social things or not. Well, reducing consciousness to neural activity is not it does not enrich us spiritually. While we work on this project, we are working to exclude the God aspect from the academia. Some students come to us and ask if they will be sinning if they work on projects related to AI. We need to build a society where humans are final objectives. That's a beautiful objective, but as you dig deeper, you see that all of those sociology or political science projects are actually instances of activism that attempt to devalue the principles of Islam. For example, some people suggested Islamization of knowledge, and that's very important, but I think it's not enough. It's necessary, but it's not enough.
Şu olduğunu düşünüyorum.
In one direction, it is like building irregular or illegal houses on the land that we have, that we own. So, where were we? We should go back. And with this current information system, it is not possible or it's not right strategy to Muslimize those outputs. So we need to add up our own questions and we need to open new ways and new areas, new rooms in the academia. We need to be aware of our disadvantages and we need to overcome this. And I think that this part should be underlined during Istanbul Forum. If you don't do this, then you will not be able to go further. And of course, for union, with these principles, with these existence, we need to understand the understanding of information where we will take part in academia. And I would like to extend my salutations to each and every one of you. Mr. Ahmet Ayhan Çitil, thank you very much for your valuable sentences. In the 21st century, for the production of information, he has mentioned a different method, and today and in the coming days, we will be discussing new experiences and new opportunities. Taking this chance, I will end this session as the moderator. Once again, I would like to thank each and every one of you for participating in our session. So this is the end of our session. Thank you so much.
Kıymetli misafirlerimiz,
Dear guests, now we thank our professors for their speeches. We are going to present gifts, presents for our professors, and I would like to invite Mr. Zekeriya Hacıoğlu to the podium to present the gifts.
hatta
Şöyle ikişer ikişer hemen hızlıca ikişer ikişer bana verin biraz.
ediyoruz. Kıymetli misafirlerimiz, programımızın
Dear guests, the first part of our program has just ended. We will continue our program in the